All right, folks, this is a fun one. I'm sure a lot of you guys who saw this were very excited to see Aaron Mate and Rabbi Shmuley go head to head. And so we're going to take a look at this. Aaron Mate calls Rabbi Shmuley a Nazi. That's right. So we're going to actually pick up the video a couple minutes before that, because what really prompted Aaron to dig in against Shmuley was that Rabbi Shmuley accused Omar Badar, who's the panelist on the far right, of being an anti-Semite for suggesting that it's Israel's fault for cutting off the power to Gaza. So we're going to pick it up there, and then we're going to hear Aaron clap back in true buzzsaw fashion.
Hundreds of billions of dollars they got not to build one bomb shelter, not one electricity plant, which could have answered Pierce's issue about they used it all to build a terror network for their fighters and then use babies and every and you say about Jewish supremacy. I want to stand unequivocally with a yarmulke and a beard. I believe as a Jew that God loves every Palestinian child as much as a Jew, and everyone that died is because of Hamas.
Okay.
Hamas.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Omar, I want you to respond to that.
Sure. I mean, first, it is quite rich to hear Rabbi Shmuley complain about anybody interrupting. He's pretty much a three-trick pony. He's either interrupting, or he's lying, or he's smearing people.
Ad hominem. Are you really going to get into ad hominem this early in the debate? You really have to personalize it. Deal with the facts, please.
There's the first
Stop
trick.
the ad
That's the
hominem
interruption
attacks.
trick.
Go ahead.
He's demonstrating it.
Please don't do the ad hominem,
his first trick for you right now. In fact, Piers, frankly, if your audience watching at home were playing a drinking game in which they took a shot every time he either lied or interrupted, half of your audience would be dead before
this
the
is
program
just ad hominem. Do you know facts or not? Do you want to debate fact, or do you want to insult me?
Are you going to keep interrupting? Are you going to keep complaining about interrupting and then do your own interrupting? Are you just going to demonstrate your hypocrisy to everyone on television?
Here we go. Hypocrisy, liar. We know what you think about Jews. Debate the facts. Forget the evil me and debate the facts.
Unbelievable level of hypocrisy.
Aaron's like, man, this is even worse than the Vanguard. Should go on the Vanguard again.
Your hypocrisy right now by continually interrupting.
Stop the insults. Try and stop.
Yeah, I'll set the insults if that's even possible with dealing with people like you. Now, Rabbi Shmuley actually fully understands that the reason why there's no electricity in Gaza is because Israel. Can you be quiet? Can you be quiet and let me finish what I have to say? Rabbi Shmuley knows extremely well that the reason why there's no electricity in Gaza is because Israel bombs the infrastructure in Gaza and then puts Gaza under siege and does not allow Palestinians to rebuild their own power plants. They've created a situation of dependence where Gaza cannot survive on its own economically. It has to depend on Israel, and that is by design because Israel wants to be able to shut off the electricity at any point. Rabbi Shmuley knows this, but he tries to play on the uninformed audiences. He takes them for fools and hopes that they won't be able to see through the idiocy that he's actually demonstrating right now.
So now
but anybody with a functioning brain will understand very well that the reason why Gaza is not free is because Israel prevents it from being free.
Google more personal insults. You can't deal with a single historical fact that I said, so you've called me an idiot, hypocrite, a liar. Let me tell you something. See, this is what we call classic anti-Semitism.
You think your narrative is made up of facts? Are you kidding me?
I quoted to you the Peel Commission, the UN, the Omer deal. You cannot respond to a single one. So what do you have to do? Ad hominem, ad hominem, ad hominem. Deal with me as a person and try to suppress your hatred for Jews. Thank you.
Now, I want to say something now. I'm not a religious
Okay, so then this is a couple minutes later where they toss to Aaron.
person. So I can't claim to be a devout Jew. But I got to say, Rabbi Shmuley, you don't speak for me. Accusing people like my friend Omar of anti-Semitism simply because he wants the freedom of his people. It saddens me to see what people like you have done to the Jewish tradition. The suffering of my family, my great-grandparents perished in the Holocaust. They were murdered by the Nazis. And today, I have to tell you, I see you as the modern-day followers of the Nazis, supporting this mass murder campaign in Gaza, putting the people of Gaza in what even Israelis have called a concentration camp. It's the Israeli Jews of today, supported by American Jews, unfortunately, some, that are following in the footsteps of our oppressors. And I hope one day you can connect to your own humanity and the very best of your own tradition, which I believe in, to see just how horrible this modern state, this modern supremacist state, is not only for the Palestinians,
you can't
but the Jewish
seriously,
people as
Aaron,
well.
you can't seriously be saying that Rabbi Shmuley, one of the most high-profile Jews in the world, is a successor to the Nazis.
Is a Nazi.
I mean, that's a pretty
I am saying
despicable.
that.
That's a pretty despicable thing to say, isn't it?
I mean, you are such a fucking moron and a hack. I mean, I'm sorry. Piers Morgan is worst of the worst. He's so incurious. I mean, how he tweeted out, and I think I either quote tweeted or replied to him. He tweeted out, hey, Israel shouldn't have the power to cut off the electricity in Gaza. And I tweeted back at him, and the tweet did very well because I guess this is a sentiment shared among so many people. You'd think you would have come to this conclusion earlier, since you've been discussing this topic every day for the past year and a half. Talk about a guy who's stupid on purpose. He cuts Aaron off. He says, that's a despicable thing to say to a Jew. Aaron mentioned in that piece, he's Jewish himself. He lost ancestors to the Nazi Holocaust, and it is because of that tragic family history that he feels especially offended by A, what Israel's doing now, and B, the cover that Shmuley is running for it. So if you're the host, why would you go to, how dare you call him, how dare you make a Nazi comparison to him? Aaron is every bit the Jew that Rabbi Shmuley is. Aaron has every right to claim ownership of his heritage and ancestry that Rabbi Shmuley has. So why would you come back and call him despicable rather than reckon with that very profound point? Hey, I have lost family members to the Holocaust, and now I see the Jewish state committing a Holocaust of their own. Why wouldn't you strengthen that point? Why would you push back in the cheapest, most incurious and ignorant way? Because he's a hack. Because Piers Morgan is a complete and total hack who has these conversations that he gets such credit for. He learns nothing from them. He learns nothing from them on purpose. He didn't figure out until a few days ago that Israel had the power to turn off the electricity in Gaza and that was a problem. Really? You've been debating this topic in public for an hour a night, every night for the last year and a half, and that just occurred to you? He's just such an incurious, stupid hack. It really is incredibly frustrating to watch.
Yeah, Piers Morgan is the memento of journalists, of telejournalists. He has no memory of what was said to him 10 minutes ago.
Right. He has to.
Every episode is the first episode.
Exactly.
that he's ever done. Good on Aaron for, as far as I know, being the first in this kind of a format to actually say that to his face.
Yeah.
The reason that Piers Morgan has to jump up and feign offense is because he's running a wrestling show disguised as a debate show. We know from people that he's invited on what he looks for. He's just looking for people who are going to hit each other over the head with a chair and do a body slam and a suplex. That's what he wants. He doesn't really care what the subject is. He doesn't care who the people are. Now, the benefit of that is because that's what he's doing, he does have interesting panels. That's why even for people who are interested,
that's why the ratings are through
in legitimate conversation, because what other show would put Aaron on a panel with Shmuley, right? Who has the juice to get them both to show up? There are people who might ask, but not ones that could actually get them there. So it does have that value. I mean, look at the moment that it created. But he wants to maintain his standing in polite company. He is not a radical. He is not a moralist. He is not somebody looking to take a political stand on any issue. He likes his shrimp cocktails and his martinis dry and to go to nice places with nice people. And you don't get to do that when you say, well, I think Aaron has a point there. You have to admit, he's not going to say that. He has to show that he's with the club. He's putting these people on the air, but he's still in the club.
Right. And to the extent that these debates happen, he wants to keep it as superficial as possible by saying, how dare you say that, rather than actually look into what a profound point that is. Right. And we know, we won't name names, but we know that the Piers Morgan show reaches out to people and they say, hey, there's this person coming on who you really hate. Wouldn't it be great if you come on with them and you can, just have a big sort of, WrestleMania type throwdown. That's what he's interested in.
That's the whole show. That's the whole show.
That's why he paired them. That's why I think he paired Shmuley with Norm at one point. Right. So, that's the whole sort of concept of the show. All right, let's let this play a little more.
You can't seriously, Aaron, you can't seriously be saying that Rabbi Shmuley, one of the most high-profile Jews in the world, is a successor to the Nazis.
Is a Nazi.
I mean, that's a pretty despicable. That's a pretty despicable thing to say, isn't it?
He supports the mass murder of children in the concentration camp. What else am I supposed to do?
May I respond to that?
I think you should respond to that.
These are Nazi tactics.
Aaron,
these are Nazi tactics.
Aaron, notice I have not once offended, used that homonym attacks against Omar or you. I have decided that I'm going to be factual. No, excuse me. You won't interrupt me.
High road
Omar started excuse me. Omar started calling me a liar. He wouldn't deal with any facts. A hypocrite. He said I'm drunk on lies. et cetera, et cetera. That's what we call ad hominem, personal attacks. I've seen it whenever, and I debate everybody because I like Pearson. This is why I love this show. I'm also a free speech absolutist. The person you just called a Nazi spent the past year with his friend Wander.
I just have to point out.
Free speech absolutist.
He's been tweeting and posting about how Khalil does not have First Amendment rights relentlessly since he got arrested.
Yeah. Free speech absolutist. Wow. Wow.
Because of our close relationship from my years as rabbi at Oxford, he was my student president. And Bobby Kennedy Jr., the new HHS Secretary of Health and Human Service, saving 200 Palestinian children who had cancer. Hamas would not let them go to an Israeli hospital because they would kill their families if Israeli hospitals treated them. Shaare Tzedek or Sheba Medical, all of whom agreed to take them. We had to take them to St. Jude's Hospital in Amman, and I helped get them out. And the reason why the Israeli military wanted the kids out but not their accompanying attendants is that so many of them were terrorists pretending to be an uncle, a grandfather.
Sure that's
but I helped arrest. A few of them died. It was terrible. I think we saved 173. But I want to say something to you, Aaron, if I may, respectfully. I believe what you just said about me as a Jew, comparing me to a Nazi, will live in ignominy, respectfully, on your resume forever and ever and ever. I think you have now permanently undermined any and all semblance, iota, molecule, atom of credibility. Because if you can compare me, if you can compare me, father of 9 children, grandfather of 11, who has fought his entire life for Arab rights, who, when I was the rabbi at Oxford, got halal meat for all of us, including the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia, who today is...
Oh, you got halal meat for the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia. I apologize. I had you all wrong. You made sure that the king of Saudi Arabia's grandson could eat, had access to halal meat. Well, I take back everything I said about Rabbi Shmuley then in that case. Wow, this is going to follow you forever. No, actually, that statement is going to live up very, very well. And it's amazing and astounding that actually took so long for someone to say that to your face. And I'm really glad that Aaron did that because, that just has to be normalized. There's this thing where you can't call an Israeli a Nazi because of their history. Well, no, absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. And as a Jewish man, it makes it even more powerful. Aaron is sort of, I won't say uniquely equipped to do it. I mean, it means something extra coming from him, given his father's history and his family's history. And obviously when Jews say that, it means a little more. But I think anybody should be allowed to say that, whether you're Jewish or not. I say that as a Jewish guy myself. What else do you say? Aaron says, you support mass murder of people in a concentration camp. What else am I supposed to call you?
Right. Well, a lot of people have been making that comparison for a long time, but this is, I think, the most high-profile platform where anyone has actually said that.
Yeah.
And hey, that's what this is all about. It's about fighting over narrative. And certainly Shmuley is on the front lines of fighting to make sure that open conversations like that don't happen. Clearly, what they are doing, the great tragedy, great irony of this, the way that, in spite of what Shmuley's saying, the way that history will remember this, just as we pore over the Nazi past, because it's such a fascinating window into human nature under unusual circumstances and what people are capable of under the right conditions. That's how people are going to remember this. This is going to be examined as a study in how people can become the oppressor that they were fighting against. It's very much Nietzsche's be careful in fighting monsters lest you become one. That is how history is going to remember Israel. It's going to offer tragic insight into that aspect of human nature, of how the abused can become the abuser, can become the perfect reflection of their former oppressor.
Yes. And to put it in those terms, to make a Nazi comparison, is not an offense to the Jews who suffered in Nazi Germany.
No.
It's an offense, a rightful offense, against the Israeli state who are behaving like Nazis. I mean, that is just the truth of the matter. And as for Russ said here, I just want to pull this tweet. I'll screen share it here. Because I actually don't follow Rabbi Shmuley on Twitter. I should have, just to see what he's been tweeting about Mahmoud. But here he is, retweeting Noah Rubin. I support the detention and deportation of Mahmoud Khalil. Pass it on.
Free speech absolutist.
And pass it along he did. The free speech absolutist, Rabbi Shmuley. Yeah. Wow. I mean, and that's what Omar said. He said, "Oh, you lie and interrupt and talk over people and extend your point so that people can't really push back against you." I mean, this is an Israeli tactic of just flooding the zone with bullshit.
And I would love to know the truth about that cancer story, because Aaron was shaking his head. He clearly knew what the actual story was, but there were other things going on. I would love to know what the truth is there.
I was hoping they would get into that, but again, what I mean by this is, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. I was hoping they would get into that, because a story involving Rabbi Shmuley and RFK and cancer patients, that sounds like there's a lot of bullshit attached to that story.
That is very typical Hasbara. These are the kinds of stories Zionists tell. These just they love that kind of story, like outrageous stories of the horrible cruelty of the Palestinian leaders and the decency of Israelis in spite of everything they've suffered. They're just trying to reach out a hand and help these people against their barbaric leadership. I've been hearing that shit since I was a child. They would tell these crazy stories just like that.
Right. And that's what I mean by flooding the zone. Like, I too was curious about that story. So I'm like, oh, maybe because Aaron was shaking his head like he thought something was up with that. But we never got to it. And part of the reason why we never got to it, because I watched the clip a few minutes after where it cuts off here for the show. Part of why they didn't get to it is because of what I just said. He just keeps talking. They just flood the zone with bullshit. They just keep going and going and going, where by the time you were going to fact check something they said, now that thing is 5 things ago, and you have all this other stuff to deal with. Yeah, but the basic truth of that is pretty inescapable, and I love that. I love this.
Respectfully, I believe what you just said about me as a Jew, comparing me to a Nazi, will live in ignominy, respectfully, on your resume forever and ever and ever. I think you have now permanently undermined any and all semblance, iota, molecule, atom of credibility.
Semblance, iota, molecule, atom. That's what I mean. They just go on and on and on. Just keep talking. Any semblance of credibility. That's all you got to say. Just keep
compare me. If you can compare me, father of 9 children, grandfather of 11, who has fought his entire life for Arab rights, who, when I was the rabbi at Oxford, got halal meat for all of us, including the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia.
I love that. When I was a professor at Oxford, I procured halal meat for the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia. That's his example of having fought for Arab rights. A Saudi royal's grandson studying at Oxford was able to eat halal chicken because of my efforts. Wow.
I sent sex toys to Oman.
Yeah, right, exactly. What a hero. What a hero.
Please clap.